Hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The government's plans to overhaul the Special Economic Zones Act of 2005 have been delayed further. We learn from sources the bill on the development of enterprise and services hubs, or the Desh Bill, may not be tabled in the winter session of Parliament. This, we learn, is due to differences between the Finance Ministry and the Commerce Ministry. To understand what the bill proposes and why it remains a bone of contention, I have with me former Finance Secretary Subhash Chandra Garg. But before that, we get you a report by my colleague Timsi Japuria on where do consultations on the bill really stand at this juncture.
Well, that's right. The new SEZ bill or the Desh Bill seems to be stuck, and this time stuck in limbo between Commerce and Finance Ministry. That's what sources are indicating to us. Very clearly, the new SEZ bill, which was earlier supposed to be tabled in the monsoon session but got delayed, and then it was scheduled to be tabled in the winter session, and now what sources indicate that it is still unlikely to be tabled in this winter session because Finance Ministry and Commerce Ministry are unable to come on common grounds for further rollout of this particular bill. Now, the main bone of contention between the two departments or the two ministries is the tax concessions. What should be the tax concessions that can be given to the SEZ units that will be set up under this Desh bill? Well, that is something that the tax department is not willing to budge on. They feel that the new corporate tax regime, which is already there in the system, is good enough for any unit, be it SEZ or the normal corporates, and that is what the Commerce Ministry is not in favor of. They want separate treatment for companies or manufacturing units that will be set up under the Desh Bill and CBDT, that is the Direct Tax Department. They feel that two separate regimes cannot be levied or cannot be enacted in the same system, and that is what they are not in favor of. However, Commerce Ministry is yet to get back to Revenue Department on the comments that they have raised, and thus this seems to be stuck in limbo. Let's see how soon Commerce and Finance Ministry are on the same page to see that this particular budget announcement by Nirmala Sitharaman actually sees the light of the day, that is the Desh Bill. Back to you.
All right, Subhash Chandra Garg, former Finance Secretary, joins me now. Mr. Garg, this was touted as a game changer in Budget 2022. There were widespread consultations. It was supposed to be tabled in the monsoon session. It hasn't been tabled as yet. And we believe that there is a major objection over direct and indirect tax concessions that the bill was granting. Would you say that this was the same bill as the SEC law with a new name?
See, the objective of incentivizing exports is sought to be achieved, among others, by providing the tax concessions. And many of these tax concessions have not been WTO compliant. We have had problems with that, which were there in the SEZ regime. So the effort is to find some way to provide additional concession. By the way, we have, as has been mentioned in your report, that we have lower tax rates on the manufacturing companies. We also have PLI schemes for covering or neutralizing the cost of additional cost of doing business in the country. We also have the road tap scheme for neutralizing or taking care of the domestic state level taxes and the local taxes. Now, over and above all this, if you ask for more and more of tax concessions and in manner which is distortive of the domestic competition, then it's quite understandable that the Finance Ministry will object to it. And I think the Commerce Ministry should get to the ways in which our competitive disadvantage in exports is taken care of by other means. By the way, as you know, the export competitiveness depends upon the raw materials cost and the employees cost, and most importantly on the technology cost. We have raw material advantage. We also have enormous advantage as far as the skilled manpower is concerned, but we lack enormously the technology advantage, and that you can't cover or neutralize, take care of by only the tax concessions.
That's an important point, sir, because these are two major issues that the Finance Ministry has raised, and even Niti Aayog has flagged them. One, concessional corporate tax rate of 15% for extended period to all greenfield and some brownfield units, allowing SEC units to sell in domestic tariff area on payment of duties foregone on raw materials. So these are some of the reasons because of which the Finance Ministry is holding back approval or the financial approval for the Desh Bill as well. Do you think this bill can go through in the present form, sir?
So in principle, actually, my view is that extending concessional rate of 15% of tax for corporate tax only on manufacturing is not a great idea. Our competitive advantage is much more in the services, and our exports are also growing in terms of services. There are also a lot of complicated issues connected with providing services to the domestic tariff area and vice versa. Therefore, if we were to go through that route of equating the manufacturing as well as service companies, then we should do it for all the companies in the all the businesses in the country, not only for the SEZ businesses or the Desh hubs. And therefore, I don't think the insistence that only on the export related hubs you should give this concession of 15% is a good policy idea.
Right. It is also said by some experts that Desh provisions are on the lines of the streamlined customs warehousing scheme. So do you feel the provisions of the Development, Enterprise and Services Hub Bill are overlapping many of the provisions already there in the law?
I don't think, this argument may be connected with more of the non-fiscal kind of regime in terms of procedures, in terms of how do you export and all. And those are fine. Those should be provided. The non-fiscal concessions, as much as we can do for the ease of doing business there, and if many of them have already been provided for the customs regime, then it can also be provided under the Desh Bill. It might be duplicating. It may not be, because those rules would be applicable here as well. But this is not the main bone of contention to my mind. These are fine. Like similarly, the state level concessions, I think labor and other kind of thing are not also huge sort of matter of dispute. It's basically the additional extra liberal tax concession regime which is being sought for.
Right. Looking at our prior experiences with SEZs and trying to boost exports through SEZ units, there have been 3 or 4 attempts since independence to increase exports in this manner, Mr. Garg. What do you think now needs to be done as far as the SEZ law is concerned? You already have a law which has lost some of its sheen, mainly because the WTO had raised objections to the subsidies under the previous SEZ law and the sunset clause for removal of tax incentives.
So all these attempts from the days of export promotion zones to SEZ to Desh now, and in between certain other attempts, were premised on this basic acceptance that the domestic system of industrial production or manufacturing is not very competitive compared to the rest of the world. I said this earlier. So we have enormous additional costs in terms of power, land, labor, taxes, and many other things. And if we cannot deal with them in the domestic economy, which is unfortunate, in fact, we should address there. So why not at least carve out the exports from that, those kind of limitations of the land, labor, power, and others? And that has been the basic premise and the structure of all these attempts which have been made in the past. In that sense, the Desh Bill is no different, and therefore there is no new thing. So what can be done? I think ultimate solution is that we must make our domestic industry as well as services more competitive to the world by changing these disabilities or the problems in the domestic economy. And I don't know why we don't take this into consideration. The time has come where services which face much less of these kind of constraints, whether it is IT services or on the financial sides, or in times to come on these gaming and many other digital economy questions which are coming up. If we have a labor cost of about $8,000 to $10,000 very well of the same type which cost US about $60,000 to $70,000 or of the same amount in the Europe, I think that in services must be our biggest advantage in delivering those services. So if we reform our services related regime, even in terms of WTO concessions for others, our legal services, our other services are also very competitive. Education, health. So if we focus on that, instead of focusing on manufacturing where we don't have technological advantage, you take semiconductors or you take renewables, which are the future manufacturing things. There we don't have that technological advantage, and if we keep on going after them, we may not actually achieve better results than what we have achieved in the last 3 or 4 iterations of these bills. But if we focus on services, and you are aware, services now are about $260, $270 billion of exports, whereas trade or the commodities exports is only about $400 billion. We can change this very quickly, and services exports can become $500 to $1 trillion in next 5 to 10 years. So I think we should change the approach completely from going after these Desh hubs or SEZs for manufacturing. Instead of that, we should make the whole country an exporting hub for the services.
All right. So, sir, now coming to the question of the Desh Bill in the present form, what are the changes that are needed? Do we even need a new bill right now to increase exports, or does this bill, can it be changed to make it better as per current market conditions?
See, my sense is that the Desh Bill, which is targeting manufacturing, so the E part of this enterprise is basically the manufacturing, though it also talks about services. I think we should get out of this enterprises part of it and rework it for the services part of it. And instead of asking for these kind of fiscal concessions and others, we should open up the economy. We should seek the concessions elsewhere by offering the concessions and provide a lot of policy problems. We don't allow today the offshoring of jobs in the country. We don't allow our people to work for the actual companies. We don't allow our companies to or our people to join and form service companies and the world. So there are lots of things which, if we do, and as I said earlier, entire field of health, education, legal, accounting, and financial services, if we open up and focus this bill on that, perhaps we will have a better chance and lesser fiscal outgo, which will not lead to more objections from the finance ministry and the Niti as well. I don't think this bill is going to go through.
All
this
right.
Will be,
so, Mr. Garg,
in this form, this will be junked.
Okay, that's an important point. You're saying that in this current form, it will be junked. It cannot go through. The differences between the ministries will be too strong. And you're saying the way out is to change the focus of the bill from enterprise to services and give concessions in areas where we are more competitive, focus on export of services in a big way, focus on technology competitiveness as well for the long term. Thank you very much, Mr. Garg, for joining us here on the Desh Bill, on the key issues, because the bill is not coming to Parliament. We're heading into a short break here, but on the other side, the Supreme Court once again makes its stance clear on the collegium controversy, reiterates that the collegium system is the law of the land and must be followed. A special discussion with Virappa Moily, former law minister, when we're back.